Okay, quick disclaimer. No, I am not a Satanist, nor am I involved with any sort of left-hand path. I just thought it would be fun to look into. In fact, not only am I open to having flat earthers become a recurring thing, I would just like to look into alt communities in general, you know. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to Jesse Nelson, who decided to tip me $12 through Kodash Fi late last month. I definitely gotta say it was a nice little early birthday present. So thank you. In fact, if you want to tip me as well, click the. I'll put my Kodash Fi link in the description below. In fact, I'm considering putting it in every description from now on. But yeah. It's in the description below. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Anton LaVey. Anton LaVey, in 1930 to 1997, was the founder of the Church of Satan, the first organized church in modern times, promulgating a religious philosophy championing Satan as the symbol of personal freedom and individuals. Unlike the founders of other religions who claimed exalted inspiration delivered through some supernatural entity, LaVey readily acknowledged that he used his own faculties to synthesize Satanism, based on his understanding of the human animal and insights gained from earlier philosophers who advocated materialism and individualism. Concerning his role as founder, he said that if he didn't do it himself, someone else, perhaps less qualified, would have. Born in Chicago in 1930, his parents soon relocated to California, that westernmost gathering place for the brightest and darkest manifestations of the American dream. It was a fertile environment for the sensitive child who would eventually mature into a role that the press would dub the Black Pope. From his Eastern European grandmother, young LaVey had learned of the superstitions that are still extant in that part of the world. These tales whetted his appetite for the auteur, leading him to become absorbed in classic dark literature such as Dracula and Frankenstein. He also became an avid reader of the pulp magazines, which first published tales now deemed classics of the horror and science fiction genres. He later befriended seminal Weird Tales officers such as Clark Ashton Smith, Robert Barbour Johnson, and George Haas. His fancy was captured by fictional characters found in the works of Jack London, in comic strip characters like Ming the Merciless, as well as historical figures of a diabolical cast such as Cagliostro, Rasputin, and Basil Zaharoff. More interesting to him than the available occult literature, which he dismissed as being little more than sanctimonious white magic, were books of applied obscure knowledge such as Dr. William Leslie's Cook Practical Lessons in Hypnotism, Jane's Fighting Ships, and manuals for handwriting analysis. His musical abilities were noticed early, and he was given free rein by his parents to try his hand at various instruments. LaVey was mainly attracted to the keyboards because of their scope and versatility. He found time to practice and could easily reproduce songs heard by ear without recourse to fake books or sheet music. This talent would prove to be one of his main sources of income for many years, particularly his calliope playing during his carnival days and later his many stints as an organist in bars, lounges, and nightclubs. These venues gave him the chance to study how various melodic lines and chord progressions swayed the emotions of his audiences, from the spectators at the carnival and spook shows to the individuals singing solace for the disappointments of their lives and distilled spirits and the smoke-filled taverns for which LaVey's playing provided a soundtrack. His odd interest marked him as an outsider, and he did not alleviate this by feeling any compulsion to be one of the boys. He despised gym class and team sports and often cut classes to follow his own interests. He was an avid reader and watched films such as those which would later be labeled film noir, as well as German expressionist cinema such as M, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and the Dr. Mabuse movies. His flashy mauve dress also served to amplify his alienation from the mainstream. He dropped out of high school to hang around with hoodlum types and gravitated towards working in the circus and carnivals, first as a roustabout and cage boy and later as a musician. His curiosity was rewarded through learning the ropes and working an act with the big cats and later assisting with the machinations of the spook shows. He became well versed in the many rackets used to separate the rubes from their money, along with the psychology that led people to such pursuits. He played music for the body shows on Saturday nights, as well as for tent revivalists on Sunday mornings, seeing many of the same people attending both. All this provided a firm, earthy background for his evolving, cynical worldview. When the carnival season ended, LaVey would earn money by playing organ in Los Angeles area burlesque houses, and he relates that it was during this time period that he had a brief affair with the then unknown Marilyn Monroe. Moving back to San Francisco, LaVey worked for a while as a photographer for the police department, and during the Korean War enrolled in San Francisco City College as a criminology major to avoid the draft. Both his studies and occupation revealed grim insights into human nature. At this time, he met and married Carol Lansing, who bore him his first daughter, Carla Maritza, in 1952. A few years earlier, LaVey had explored the writings of Aleister Crowley, and in 1951 he met some of the Berkeley Thelemites. He was unimpressed, as they were more spiritual and less wicked than he supposed they should be for disciples of Crowley's libertine creed. During the 1950s, LaVey supplemented his income as a psychic investigator, helping to investigate nut calls referred to him by his friends in the police department. These experiences proved to him that many people are inclined to seek a supernatural explanation for phenomena that had more prosaic causes. His rational explanations often disappointed the complainants, so LaVey invented more exotic causes to make them feel better, giving insight as to how religion often functions in people's lives. In 1956, he purchased a Victorian house on California Street in San Francisco's Richmond district. It was reputed to have been a speakeasy. He painted it black. It would later become home to the Church of Satan. After his death, the house remained unoccupied until it was demolished by a real estate company which owned the property on October 17th of 2001. LaVey met and became entranced by Diane Hegarty in 1959. He then divorced Carol in 1960. Hegarty and LaVey never married, but she bore him his second daughter, Zena Galatea, in 1964 and was his companion for many years. Hegarty and LaVey later separated, and she sued him for palimony, and this was settled out of court. LaVey's final companion was Blanche Barton, who bore him his only son, Satan Xerxes Carnacki LaVey, on November 1st, 1993. According to LaVey's wishes, she succeeded him as the head of church after his death on October 29th, 1997. In 2001, she passed on the position to Peter H. Gilmore, a longtime member of the Council of Nine. Through his ghost-busting and his frequent public gigs as an organist, including playing the Wurlitzer at the Lost Weekend Cocktail Lounge, LaVey became a local celebrity, and his holiday parties attracted many San Francisco notables. Guests included Karine de Plessin, called the Baronesses as she had grown up in the Royal Palace of Denmark, anthropologist Michael Herner, Chester A. Arthur III, grandson to the U.S. President, Forrest J. Ackerman, later the publisher of Famous Monsters of Filmland and acknowledged expert in science fiction, author Fritz Lieber, local eccentric Dr. Cecil E. Nixon, creator of the musical automaton Isis, and the underground filmmaker Kenneth Anger. From this crowd, LaVey distilled what he called a magic circle of associates who shared his interest in the bizarre, the hidden side of what moves the world. As his expertise grew, LaVey began presenting Friday night lectures, summarizing the fruits of his research. In 1965, LaVey was featured on the Brother Buzz Show, a humorous children's program hosted by marionettes. The focus was on LaVey's Addams Family lifestyle, making living as a hypnotist, psychic investigator, and organist, as well as on his highly unusual pet Togare, a Nubian lion. In the process of creating his lectures, LaVey was led to distill a unique philosophy based on his life experiences and research. When a member of his magic circle suggested that he had a basis for a new religion, LaVey agreed and decided to found the Church of Satan as the best means for communicating his ideas. And so, in 1966, on the night of May Eve, the traditional Witches' Sabbath, LaVey declared the founding of the Church of Satan as well as renumbering 1966 as the year 1, Anno Satanas, the first year of the Age of Satan. The attention of the press soon followed, particularly with the wedding of radical journalist John Raymond to New York socialite Jizz Case on February 1st, 1967. Famed photographer Joe Rosenthal was sent by the San Francisco Chronicle to capture an image, which was then presented in the Chronicle as well as the Los Angeles Times and other major newspapers. LaVey began the mass dissemination of his philosophy via the release of a record album, The Satanic Mass. Morgan Strum, 1968. The album featured a cover graphic named by LaVey as the Sigil of Baphomet, a goat head in a pentagram circled with a Hebrew word for Leviathan, which has since become the ubiquitous symbol of Satanism the world over. Featured on the album was a part of the rite of baptism written for 3-year-old Xena, performed on May 23, 1967, in addition to the actual recording of a satanic ritual. Side 2 of the LP had LaVey reading excerpts from the as yet unpublished The Satanic Bible over music by Beethoven, Wagner, and Sosa. His Friday lectures continued, and he instituted a series of witches' workshops to instruct women in the art of attaining their will through glamour, feminine wiles, and the skillful discovery and exploitation of men's fetishes. By the end of 1969, LaVey had taken monographs he had written to explain the philosophy and ritual practices of the Church of Satan and melded them with all of his philosophers' influences from Ayn Rand, Nietzsche, Mencken, and London, along with the base of wisdom of the carnival folk. He prefaced these essays and writes with reworked excerpts from Ragnar Redbeard's Might is Right, and concluded with Satanized versions of John Dee's Enochian Keys to create the Satanic Bible. It has never gone out of print and remains the main source for the contemporary Satanic movement. The Satanic Bible was followed in 1971 by The Complete Witch, re-released in 1989 as The Satanic Witch, a manual which teaches lesser magic, the ways and means of reading and manipulating people and their actions towards the fulfillment of one's desired goals. The Satanic Rituals, 1972, was printed as a companion volume to the Satanic Bible and contains rituals culled from the Satanic tradition identified by LaVey in various world cultures. 2 collections of essays which range from the humorous and insightful to the sordid The Devil's Notebook, 1992, and Satan Speaks, 1998, to complete his written canon. Since its founding, LaVey's Church of Satan attracted many varied people who shared an alienation from conventional religions, including such celebrities as Jane Mansfield and Sammy Davis Jr., as well as rock stars King Diamond and Marilyn Manson, who all became, at least for a time, card-carrying members. He numbered among his associates Robert Frost, director of the Vincent Price Dr. Phoebes films, as well as The Devil's Reign, Jacques Caval, ufologist and computer scientist, who was used as the basis for the character Lacombe, played by Francois Truffaut in Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and Emma Michael, known as a spelunker and publisher of Morning of the Magicians. LaVey's influence was spread by numerous articles in the news media throughout the world. Popular magazines such as Look, McCall's, Newsweek, and Time, men's magazines, and on talk shows such as Joe Pine, Phil Donahue, and Johnny Carson. This publicity left a mark on novels like Rosemary's Baby, completed by era 11 during the early days of the church's high-profile music blitz, and Lieber's Early of Darkness, and films such as Rosemary's Baby, 1968, Devil's Reign, 1975, The Car, 1977, and many years of the later Devil Cult films from the 1970s through the 1990s that picked up on symbolism from LaVey's writings. A feature-length documentary, Satanus, The Devil's Mass, 1969, covered the rituals and philosophy of the church, while LaVey himself was profiled in Nick Bugaz's 1993 video documentary, Speak of the Devil. LaVey's musicianship is preserved on several recordings, primarily stage music, 1994, and Satan Takes a Holiday, 1995, both originally released by Amarillo Records, now available through Reptilian Records. These reflect his penchant for tunes from the 1930s to the 1950s, which range from humorous to doom-laden as well as devil-themed songs. LaVey renders them on a series of self-programmed synthesizers imitating various instrumental groups. They are impressive as these are not multi-track recordings, but are done in one take with the sounds of the full instrumental ensemble created through the simultaneous use of numerous synthesizers played by LaVey's hands, as well as his feet on an organ-style foot pedal keyboard hooked up via MIDI. Two biographies have been written about LaVey: The Devil's Avenger, 1974, by Burton Wolfe, and Secret Life of a Satanist, 1990, by Blanche Barton. The authenticity of some of the events chronicles in these works have been disputed in recent years, particularly by detractors of LaVey who accuse him of self-promotional exaggeration. LaVey was a skilled showman, a talent he never denied. However, the number of incidents detailed in both biographies that can be authenticated via photographic and documentary evidence far outweigh the few items in dispute. The fact remains that LaVey pursued a course that exposed him to the heights and depths of humanity, full of encounters with fascinating people. It climaxed with his founding of the Church of Satan and led to notorious celebrity on a worldwide scale. The church has survived his death and continues through the medium of his writings to continually attract new members who see themselves reflected in the philosophy called Satanism.